Hello, everybody, and welcome to AAC Access All Areas. My name is Ali Batty.
And I'm Ruth Jones. And today's question is, I've got the device, I've got the app, what now?
So we've kind of been building up to this one, haven't we, Ruth? That the last two episodes have been around which app and where do I get a device and accessories. So now we're thinking that you've probably chosen your app, maybe purchased it from the App Store, and then,
Mhm.
depending on which app you've chosen. So we were just having a little chat before we went on air. Listen to me, we're pros now, aren't we, Ruth? Got the lingo. And we thought maybe we would start with a newish app, newer. It's probably about 5 or 6 years old by now. But
Yeah.
Proloquo, as opposed to Proloquo2Go. They're two different apps, but Proloquo was released in response to parent feedback, because Proloquo2Go, you have to make lots of decisions about like grid size and vocabulary and level of vocabulary. So Assistiveware, who develop both apps, decided to develop this second app called Proloquo, which is basically ready to go out of the box. So you don't get to choose the grid size. I think it's about, if I had to guess, it's like between 60 and 70 buttons maybe on the page. And
Mm.
they are fixed. So you've got like core words on the home screen and you don't do anything with the home screen, but then you can personalize the topics when you go into the topics. So of all of the robust apps that we've talked about, I would say Proloquo is sort of the most ready to go without needing to make any decisions. So if you are a parent and that is what you are after, that might be a reason to take a look at Proloquo. So should we move on to
Yeah.
Proloquo2Go next?
Yeah, well, I guess we talked about, didn't we? Like, how do you actually talk about this without kind of going through each different app? But there's kind of a group, grouped differently, aren't they? Where, like you say, Proloquo is straight up, it's already there, there's no decisions, just add your vocab.
Mm.
Whereas Proloquo2Go, and I think I'm right in saying Snap Core as well,
Yes, that's the
when
same.
you
Choose
add
your
the
grid
apps, there's
size.
then, yeah, and their decisions are then needing to be made. So you're thinking about um, how many symbols are on one page.
Yeah,
And I generally recommend go for pretty much the maximum that is available. The one that Proloquo2Go particularly recommends is their 7x11 grid, which isn't as big as it can go, but is kind of their recommended one. And 7 times 11 would be what, 77?
77, isn't it? I hope so. My maths
I
is
am
really bad.
definitely a speech therapist. No,
Yes.
my math is awful, but yeah, 77 symbols. So you can add more, but you can also have smaller grids. But what it does that I quite like about Prolo is where if you want to make it sort of grade it up and down, um, is that it does the work for you. So you don't have to
Mm.
choose which symbols to keep and which ones to get rid of. It sort of
Yeah.
gives you a guide so you can kind of start from a grid size.
Mhm.
But I think if you're not sure, or you start on the 7x11 grid, for example, with Proloquo2Go, when you're going through the settings and setting up, and you feel like you're not sure whether for you particularly as a parent, some parents can find those busy screens quite overwhelming when they first get going, is they have quite a nice thing on Proloquo2Go called Crescendo, where you can kind of grade vocabulary up and down. Now, generally, I don't advise hiding symbols. I don't advise kind of minimizing vocabulary. But if it genuinely does feel too overwhelming and you're like, I'm not sure how to navigate it, and maybe just over a few weeks you grade up to that full symbol,
Mm.
full 77, what you can do is crescendo. I think is there's 6 or maybe 8 stages. So stage 1 has the 77 size grid, but you only get maybe like 8 symbols on it, and then they stay in the same place. As you go to
Mm.
stage 2, it just releases more
Yes.
symbols. And so I would always say start on everything and start on the best, the biggest grid size or the recommended grid size. Because again,
Mm.
we've talked about before, haven't we, that a lot of work goes into, there's speech therapists, there's teachers, there's researchers that go into creating these apps. So trust
Yes.
their judgment.
Mm.
And if they're recommending 7 by 11, that's probably for a reason, because that's the most accessible for most people, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where sometimes people can get a bit overwhelmed, can't they? As you've got the app, you download it, and then it's got all these settings and options.
Mm. Mm.
So I think having a look at them, because usually once you set them, you can go back and change it again.
Yes.
So having a little bit of a play about with them is a good idea. But generally, I would say go for more symbols, not less.
Yes. Yeah, go for the maximum. Yeah, I would say go for the maximum that the child can accurately select. So it might be that you have a look. Well, I quite like the YouTube test actually. So have a look what a child can do on YouTube, and have a look at the size of their accuracy on YouTube. And if they've got like really good accuracy and can go into the search bar quite accurately, then I think the 7 by 11 on Proloquo2Go would be fine for them.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? Like we think about which symbol sets do you go with and how many, and you think how many children can open up the Netflix with all the little thumbnails and
Mm,
find the picture, which ultimately is what a symbol is, of the
mm,
thing that it is that they want. So if
mm,
they have capacity to do that, even if they don't understand the symbols yet, we
mm,
have they have capacity that we can teach them. So think
mm.
big, think plenty of words and plenty of symbols rather than less. And yeah, so I think that's kind of the next stage, isn't it? Is if you've got an app, decide on how many symbols you're going to put on
Mm,
that screen, but hold in mind and presume that your child has potential to manage that many symbols and they have
mm,
potential to be taught that many symbols.
mm,
And then just monitor, you'll get a feel for whether maybe this feels a little bit too many, maybe this isn't
mm,
enough, or, like some apps, when you then go into like the topic folder, you can then make the button slightly bigger on a topic folder. So maybe, you can play about with things a little bit um, like that. So I think, yeah, Prolo and Snapcore are kind of similar in that sense, aren't they? That you
yeah.
download it, it's one vocabulary set, but you
Well,
have
in
choices to
TD
make in terms
Snap,
of how much.
I'm just trying to think because I think if you get TD Snap, you do get a choice of vocabularies. So Snap and Core is the most common one that people seem to go for good reasons. It is a good one. But they recently released something called TD Express, which is a bit more
Oh,
pragmatic and phrase based. So it's a bit like VocoChat
interesting.
in Grid. And then they'd also got some older vocabularies available as well, like, is it
Uh,
Cater? Um, so you get some choice with TD Snap as well, like you do with Grid for iPad, where you get lots of choice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think actually it's just made me think about another thing that people might get a bit confused about is when you're setting up your um apps, that Proloquo to Go uses a set of symbols,
Mm,
and then when you're in to any of the Toby Dynavox, the TD apps, they use a different set of
mm,
symbols, and then in Grid you can choose from all the sets of symbols. So
mm,
um, that's something just to think about when you're setting up. If you've got a choice, you might have a choice on how many like buttons you get on a page, but you might also have a choice of which symbol sets the device and the app are then using. Widget we've talked about before, haven't we?
yeah,
Tends to be, I'd say that's the more broadly used one in England. Most schools use widget software to create their symbols that you'll see on
mhm.
staff lanyards and schedules and that kind of thing. But to my knowledge, Grid is the only app that has a license to use the widget symbols.
Yes, I think so. I'm just trying to think. I think that's right. TD Snap
Mm,
uses picture communication symbols, PCS, as its default, because it also owns Boardmaker, which is the
yeah,
um, symbol software making software. That came out completely scrambled. If you want to make paper-based resources using symbols, one software is Boardmaker, and that uses PCS symbols as well. And Tobii Dynavox and Boardmaker are part of the same company. Um, so
yeah,
that yeah, that's PCS. So one symbol set is widget literacy symbols, another is PCS, which is more American. So the
mm,
vocabulary is more of an American vocabulary. And then there is also symbol sticks. And
yeah,
that came out with Proloquo. But you can also, like you say, you can also get symbol sticks in within Grid if you would like
yeah,
symbol sticks particularly.
yeah, and PCS as well within
Yes,
Grid.
within Grid.
And
Yeah.
PCS, I guess, is one thing just to mention that they are, particularly if you've got a child with a visual impairment or a cognitive visual impairment and you need high contrast.
Mm,
I noticed because I actually asked this question to the Think Smart Box. Their chat is great. They're on their website where you can ask the chat just yesterday that PCF widget symbols are not licensed for high contrast. They don't have a high contrast symbol set within Grid, but PCS do. Um, so they're just a few things to kind of be aware of,
mm,
I suppose,
mm,
when you're setting up, is if you need to do particular things to improve the accessibility for your
mhm,
child. But I think, yeah, downloading to ones where you know the vocab package and the size of the symbols is go big and stick with it.
mm.
But like you say, there are some differences, aren't there? Particularly with Grid,
Yeah.
because there is a plethora of
Yes.
options, and we've talked a bit about, haven't we? They kind of broadly split when you're thinking about AAC into symbols and text-based, and then when you're in the symbols-based one, which I think is what we've been talking about a bit more on the podcast actually, is you've got SuperCore and then you've got Voco Chat. And
Mm,
SuperCore has three different options because you can get their learning grids, which are kind of very topic-based specific, just one grid on one page, and then you come in and out of the different topics. You have Supercore 30, which is, as it says, 30 symbols, and then Supercore 50, which, as it says, is 50 symbols. So when you download Grid, you do then have a decision to make, don't you? And
mm.
kind of add the right grid set to your
Yeah.
Grid Explorer, as they call it.
Yes, yes. And again, you could potentially download Supercore 50 and Voco Chat and just compare them. So
Yeah.
those are the two that I use most often. And um, it is sort of like I have in the past shown a parent both, and like the parent might just have a strong feeling about, I think this one's gonna work better.
Mm,
But you can also do a clever thing where you have a button to toggle between. So a child that I'm working with at the moment, who I saw this morning actually, she knows her Voco Chat absolutely inside out. And we now have a button that takes her to Supercore so that she can do more of the constructing a sentence from scratch using core words. And then she's got the grammar feature as well that she can. So on
mm,
Supercore, you can do things like, if you've selected a verb, you can then use this magic wand thing to choose the verb tense. So go can change to going or went. Um,
mm.
and she's definitely ready for that level of grammar now. So we've kind of basically provided her with both.
Yeah, and I think I often recommend the same to parents. I'd show them if I was going in and I was working with that family as a therapist doing the assessment and stuff, I would show them the different options. I'd look,
Mm,
I think I've got Prolo and TD Snap Call First on my iPad, so we can have a look at the different options. We can talk through the differences that we're talking about now. Um, and I think that it's a really good, if families decide that Grid is the one for them, once you pay for Grid, you can download pretty much all, not all, but pretty much all of their grids for
mhm.
free within your monthly payment. So there isn't an in-app purchase here. So you can
No.
put Supercore 30, 50 Learning and Voco Chat all on your app. and have a
mm,
look at them all as a family, see which one your child's engaging with. Um, and as you say, maybe like play about with each one for a week and just see how that
mm.
feels, and then have a look at another one. Because you don't have to make that decision and it's not then stuck there, because then you might make a decision to use one of those,
Mm.
and then like you say, sort of the need becomes apparent for a different sort of vocabulary. So I think that's quite nice, isn't it, that you can toggle between them and also put
Yes.
them all on at the beginning just to have a look.
Yes, yes, and you can also, like you can also I think you can also do this in TD Snap, that you can add pages from different grid sets. So say you had
Mhm.
selected Voco Chat, but you really like the keyboard in Supercore, you can import that keyboard from Supercore, or like a timer or a clock or something from another package, and TD Snap is the same. So on TD Snap,
Mhm.
you go on to Page Set Central, and you can also see what other people have created. So we were talking about this yesterday in some training that I was doing actually. That an AAC user who was on this training was saying that they have uploaded quite a few really bespoke pages, like around trick or treating, for example, basically so that other people don't have to reinvent the wheel. So there might be something. It's always worth looking. This morning I was thinking about relationships and sex education
Mm.
vocabulary, and I did a little search for that as well. So sometimes people have already made it, so you don't have to reinvent it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess that's just made me think actually a little bit about as well, because I'm working with a young person who is kind of moving into year 9, year 10. They're in a specialist provision. So, when they don't group it by year, so I'm getting
Mm,
muddled with
mm,
which year group they're actually in. But sometimes with the different vocabulary packages as well, once you've chosen the vocabulary you want within the app, it will then offer you an option. So in Grid, for example, they have what they class as child vocab, and then they have
mm,
teen and adult vocab. So having a little bit of a look and think, because particularly around sex,
mm,
relationships, and that sort of vocabulary, the two packages, that is a really clear distinction between the vocabulary that is available in the teen and adult versus the
mm,
vocabulary that is available in the child. And they're also set up slightly differently. So when you get to the teen and adult ones, maybe they have more like college vocab. They might have more vocab about starting to organize things like your own medical appointments and,
yes.
like going to the bank and that kind of thing. So not that anybody goes to the bank anymore really, do they? But the vocabulary's there. So
Mm,
I think
mm,
that's just another thing to note, that that might be a prompt that you get when
mm,
you are setting up the vocabulary. And then I suppose once you've made your decision over the vocab, it's then there. You have other settings to consider before you get to personalising the vocab. I tend to start looking at things like the voice
mm,
and thinking about what is the voice going to be like. So again, you can do a bit like with the different vocabulary packages. You could try a few out, see which
mm,
your child responds best to, see which one they like the sound of if you're using voice output. Because I think sometimes we forget, don't we, that the way we sound is such an integral part of our identity. People will know it's us by listening to something
mm,
without seeing who it is, because our
yeah.
voice is a huge part of our identity. And that shouldn't be forgotten about in the setting up of an AAC
Mm,
device. We've
mm,
got some brilliant technology now, haven't we, for things like voice banking for people
mm.
with neurodegenerative conditions, where they can start to record themselves or they will piece together voices. There's so many incredible things, but tangent. But when bringing myself back to the point is that actually when you come to set up an AAC app, that you can usually choose a voice or download a voice. So I work with a fab young person whose family have set up an accent from the area that they live in, so
Mm,
that when you hear it, it's a challenging voice, but it's got a slight West Country,
mm,
Wiltshire sort of
mm.
borders twang to it, Somerset. And I think that's really lovely, because
That is
that's kind
great
of like
because
what
we were
I would
always
imagine they.
limited. Yeah, we were always limited before to, Rosie or, what's the boy voice called? Harry.
I
And,
don't know, but I
so
want to
if
say
you went
Jim.
into
It's
a
not
class.
Jim.
Yeah, so if you went into a class where there were multiple AAC users, there might be the same voice being used with, 3 different children, which didn't feel respectful. So I think having that,
Mm.
um, range and that choice is really important.
Mm. And have a play and see it as important to have a play and a bit of an experiment. And, you know, with some of them, you can even speed up or slow
Yeah,
down the voices.
yes,
So
and
if it
change the
feels like the right
pitch.
kind of thing, but not quite, yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you have a play with that as a setting as well when you're
Mm,
considering getting, you've got your app, you've got your vocab, actually thinking about what does this child's voice sound like? What do we feel, you know,
mm,
feels like something for them?
yeah,
And then I guess the next bit is starting to personalize, isn't it?
yes,
Like what's going to
yes,
make it meaningful?
yes, yes. So I have a little form that I send to parents, and I'm just gonna kind of pull it up just to give some ideas about what I'm asking them, if I can find it. Maybe I'll have to do it from memory, actually. Um, so I'll ask things like, obviously, like the child's name or any nicknames, pronouns, members of the family, friends, any adults at school or personal assistants. And then things like what brings them joy. So, what are their favourite activities and books and TV programs, foods? And sometimes it can be really specific that we might need like very particular flavours of hula hoops and
Hmm.
particular brands. And if that is important, when we're doing that editing, we'll try and get the picture of. Um, like McCoy's, steak flavour,
Yeah.
and just check that we've got the right picture because it could be very distressing if we'd got slightly the wrong picture. Um, and what else is on there? It's things like anything that's special for them as a family, like special things that they like to do, or like routines and quirks can be quite a nice thing to explore as a family. Or if they've got any religious or spiritual practices and we need some
Mm.
vocabulary around that. Um, can you think of anything else, Ruth, that we might be asking for personalizations? Pets, obviously.
Yeah, I sometimes think about like special places. You know, some
Mm,
families have like a particular wood that's their safe wood that they always go to for a
yeah.
walk, or so I think for me, I tend to think about like what places as well as what activities they enjoy, but
Mm,
also it's like that nuance, isn't it? About I might call it a wood, but what do you call
mm,
it? So when you're
yeah,
saying to your child, "We're going here," what
yeah.
word or what phrase do you use?
Yes.
So even if you're not putting a picture, it will say the phrase that that child's used to hearing, for example.
Mm,
So I think,
mm,
yeah, it's just anything that's special, isn't it? Because I think
mm,
so often, historically, AAC stuff, people have gone, oh, right, I'll put all their snacks in. And like, yes,
mm,
everybody loves to eat, but equally, it's not the most exciting thing to
mm,
talk about. And it's a very like practical thing. And generally, I don't think I've met a child or young person yet who only experiences joy through food. It can be a
mm,
very big part of the joy that they experience day to day, but it's often not the only thing. There's
mm,
usually a place they like to go, an
mm,
activity, a program, some music, a song, a game, you know, toy.
mm,
There's usually something else that you can kind of scaffold some vocabulary around, isn't
mm,
it? So
mm,
I think it's kind of looking at when you're going to start introducing AAC, for me, it's thinking about where are you actually planning to begin? Because you kind of don't just start, do you, by using it all day, every day. So as a
mm,
family, which time's special to you that you can think about and carve out the vocabulary that's relevant and introduce it in that special, really meaningful time? You know, for some
mm.
families, that's like just bath time. It's just
Yeah.
every day, their routine is the same at bath time. So we need the right vocabulary for that particular routine.
Mm, mm,
Um, and so then, yeah, it's just then starting to do that work, isn't it? And I think you
mm,
and I will both know how many hours it can take
mhm,
to do that personalizing. Like this is not
mm,
a
mm.
quick, oh, just dish dash
Yeah,
dosh, job
yeah,
done, here we go.
yeah.
Like this
And it's
is
never done, is
work.
it?
It does take
I like the analogy with
no.
our house, that it's like our house, that there are always rooms or corners that need some work. So even when
Yeah.
you've just redecorated your lounge, but now the kitchen's looking a bit sad and tired and needs a bit of a
Yeah.
revamp. And AAC is exactly
Yeah.
like that. So, we're dealing with a growing child with changing interests and needs and situations in
Mhm.
which they communicate. And that's going to carry on. That's lifetime. It doesn't stop
Yeah.
at 25 even. It's going
Yeah.
to carry on. Um, it's just gonna grow with that individual.
Yeah, it does, and I think it needs to be flexible, doesn't it? It's like any of us, like
Mm,
I learnt new words just this week that I'd not heard of,
mm,
and if I was
mm,
an AAC user, that new language then needs programming and needs to be accessible, and it's the
mm.
same for children. They're constantly learning new words and having new experiences. And it just popped into my head actually one thing that I was thinking about when it comes to kind of that vocabulary and personalization is that there's often I get asked the question of, but do I put the symbol in or do I put the photograph in? Or like,
Mm,
for some apps, you can add in like a little mini video clip, can't you? And
mm,
so
mm,
what's the best way to, and I generally tend to say that presume potential that the child can learn the symbol for
yeah,
that, but equally if the visual representation, so for example, if we take your crisp example, the packet of crisps can look quite generic, and actually if the
mm,
child understands the word crisps and associates crisps with their very safe food flavor of
mm,
crisps, then you're
mm,
much better putting the photograph on because that will
yeah,
be meaningful to them more than the symbol. So there are some symbols, aren't there? Like if you go into, I don't know, like the toys page, generally a jigsaw piece puzzle looks like a jigsaw piece
mm,
puzzle, and bubbles look like bubbles.
mm,
And so they're quite similar in the symbol. So
mm,
you might not feel you need those particular things to be represented by a photograph. But,
yeah,
too often I think there's this sort of thing, isn't there, that the therapist knows. And actually, as a parent, you will know what you think your
mm,
child needs, whether you think they need
mm,
photographs or you think they need symbols for each bit of vocab that you're
mm,
adding.
mm.
Um, and children often, I would say, respond quite nicely to like photographs of people rather than
Yes,
the symbols on the
yes,
AAC, because that
yeah.
feels really familiar and
And
lovely. It's like
also
looking at a
you
photo
are
album.
pretty limited to the symbol representations of a person, aren't you? You
Yeah.
can do sort of fancy things and change the clothing colour and the hair colour, and you can change skin tone, but it still is I'd say it's very gendered still. I know they are getting
Yeah.
better. Um, but yeah, I think photos can be really nice for that reason because you can really represent
Yeah.
somebody's actual identity rather than something really generic.
Yeah. The symbols, I think, of people, like you say, you can generally now change skin color so that
Mm.
kind of improves representation. But there's still, I think, to my knowledge, most of them are pictured standing up. There's
Yeah.
none in like
Yes.
wheelchairs,
Yeah.
but with
And the
like the
same
people in there.
hairstyle.
No,
They've all got the same, all the
no,
women have got the same hairstyle, I think. I don't think there's
and it's all
any
like a very
with
stiff person with a
scarves or
triangle skirt.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So
Still got a
I
way
think
to go
generally for
there.
people that,
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
li- little steps, isn't it? Little steps, but I think that's
yeah.
that's quite nice. Just to kind of think about. You've got your app, you've got your vocab, you're now starting to personalize it and think about photos and think about symbols and think about where it's meaningful. And the other thing I would say is that you don't have to go feet first, personalize every
Yeah.
folder before you even show this to your child. Like you could
Yeah.
personalize a little bit and just show it and then personalize a
Yes.
little bit more. What I would say is for me, in Grid particularly, if you're using Supercore, they have topics folders or they have like a folder for play and a folder for daily living. Um, and I would say kind of almost if you're personalizing vocab, don't personalize the topic,
Mm,
personalize the right folder within daily or play, because what you'll find is if you go into the topic folders, you just get loads of nouns. So you basically just get
yes.
loads of thing words and you can't really model, I see the thing or I want the thing or I
Mm,
like the thing or have more of the thing. You just get the thing.
mm,
Whereas if you go into play and
mm.
then add a folder for their particular toys, you can have all of the core vocabulary plus the relevant photographs. You know, if they're really into, I don't know, playing with Gruffalo toys, you could put in the
Mm.
photograph of each of their Gruffalo toy, but you still get all of the core vocabulary. So you can build a range of different modeling tools. Whereas if you just create a topic folder, all you'd have is the list of nouns
Yeah.
for those toys, which doesn't really give you much to talk about with your child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that would be something I would just say in terms of when I'm
Mm.
setting up grid, I tend to Supercore, I tend to ignore the topic folders to start
Yes.
with.
Yes. And then my messages area is probably where
Yes.
you would want to personalize, isn't it? Because that's got things like my name is, I am however
Yeah.
many years old, and like, you know, you can put information about that person's family and interests and favorite things into that area.
Yeah, yeah, I love that folder as well, for so many reasons. It's got so much good stuff in there, the messages one. It's just fast, isn't it? Which is good.
Mm,
So
mm.
I feel like on a whistle stop, we have covered a bit about things to think about and settings you might come up against as you've
Yeah.
downloaded the app you've chosen. We've talked a bit about which things to think about personalizing and whether to use photographs or symbols, and kind of not to feel too overwhelmed with that personalizing because it is a very big task. So
Mm,
take it in little manageable chunks as you go through.
mm.
We normally finish on a glimmer, but do we have anything left to capture on personalizing, do you think, before we move to our
We
glimmers of the
just had
week?
one little point to make because we do actually have a little chat before we start recording, and that was respect the app.
Yes.
So we've probably
Yeah,
both
don't go.
seen examples of where somebody has done some quite radical editing of the app and completely changed the home screen. And that can have unintended consequences that you've accidentally deleted quite a few core words that that child is going to need later, or you've taken away whole folders because you felt that they weren't sort of like ready for certain areas, but they will need those at some stage. And
Yeah.
so I just kind of try to discourage anyone from changing the home screen at all because that's like a really key part of its organization. um and I suppose I would say don't take anything away, just add to it. So
Mm,
unless there was like really outdated sort of like almost offensive language on there because culturally
yeah.
we've moved on a bit, um then
Mm,
I would say don't take anything away, just add
yeah.
to it.
Yeah. And I think if you're thinking about what vocabulary might you take or might you keep, if you're not sure, just asking questions maybe of your family members, reaching out to AAC networks, or kind of thinking about maybe speaking to school, that kind of thing. Because some of it might feel a bit uncomfortable. You know, if you've got a
Mhm.
child of a certain age and there are folders on there, which particularly when children start exploring, they can find all sorts of things, can't they,
Mm,
on grid that
mm.
maybe we adults didn't even know was there. You know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
swear word section and the
Yes.
various bits
Yeah.
around, interesting body parts and that kind of stuff. So
Mm,
just thinking
mm.
about, w- we don't want to gatekeep a child's access to
Yeah.
language, and that's not in our power. The problem
Mm.
is it is in our power, I think, with AAC, and so people
Yeah.
forget that that is a position that they hold,
Mm.
and we just need to be mindful of how we and kind of bring our awareness, I suppose, to the fact that it's a very powerful position to have hold of somebody's voice
Mm.
and be able to
Mm.
edit the
Mhm.
voice and the words that they have access to, and treat that with the importance that it carries.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, and so not taking too much away.
Yeah.
And yeah, ultimately respect the app. There's a lot of work that goes into
Yeah,
designing
yes,
these things.
yes,
So
because they have that, they've gone through sort of like years now of testing and
mm,
different versions of them, and research has gone into that of like what are the most important core words that should be on the home screen, and how do they then lead to other folders, and how are folders linked. So for example, the body folder has a link to health, or to
mhm,
sex. So all of those have been really carefully thought through.
yeah, yeah, definitely. That was a heavy message to end on, wasn't it?
It
Let's add in
was,
our
yeah, I
glimmers to
do.
kind of
Maybe I'm feeling a bit heavy this week. I'm sorry. I'll bring my lighter self next.
no, you've brought your perfect self, Ali, just as you should be today. So I think just hold on to that. Have you got a glimmer that you'd like to
I
share? I'm
have
just
got
thinking of one in my
a
head.
little
What's
glimmer.
yours?
Yeah, I've got a glimmer from this morning. So, this is probably like just a reminder to everybody, just keep modeling because I'm working with a young person who had very much learnt the pattern I want with
Mhm.
AAC. So has used a different app for quite some time, and then we have introduced an additional one. So they do still have that one, but they've got an additional one. And I have been modelling away like different sort of phrase constructions, and this morning, yes, we were playing with this wonderful toy that I've got, which is like 10 little presents, and in each box there's a
Mhm.
different item. And he is brilliant at knowing all of the categories and navigates through the categories to say what they are. And I've just been sort of lightly adding on things like sea teddy or drive car or fly aeroplane for quite a long time. And this morning, he went and got it. So he was like really enjoying it. He was going, like drive car, drive aeroplane, go aeroplane, go car, and play with Teddy, play with robot. And it was just really nice. It was just a
Oh,
reminder. Like sometimes you think that you're modeling and it's not. You don't know that it's going anywhere, and you've just got to
mhm.
like keep the faith. No, keep offering that language. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
my little glimmer this morning.
Oh, that's so nice. I have I think, yeah, I have so many experiences of that, like, long-term modeling to the
Mm,
point where people think, "Oh, should we sh is this working, or do we need to grade the
mm,
vocab down?" Or, whatever, but there is always evidence, isn't there, that actually just sticking at it,
yeah,
um, these kids are clever cookies, they
yes,
get there, and if we're not doing it, then they won't get there, so we have to keep
mm,
doing it knowing that
yeah,
at some point they will.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, well, I've got a couple, but one that's sticking out just from this week is I went to meet a child for the first time to start some work with them with their AAC. So they're a Proloquo2Go user.
Mm,
That's what's kind of on their device. And it was that sort of thing of what vocabulary is there, how much is there, and we were in their lesson, which was all about shapes, and the teacher was doing these really lovely, like multi-sensory things, and they'd got some specific boards for shapes in their lesson so they could
mm,
like communicate about the shapes that they could see. And I thought, oh, I've just got this child's device on my knee. I was literally just having a little look. I'd been in the classroom only a couple of minutes, but I opened it up and I thought, oh well, let's go to like the shapes section and just see. And so I just sort of had it on my knee, and they looked, and then they reached out and pointed and pressed the shape that they could see in
mm,
front of them, and I was just
mm,
like, this is
mm,
going to be a lot of fun working with
mm,
you. You like
mm,
already, I just think this is like going to be a really great session because that access to that vocabulary on the device
mm.
was interesting and meaningful for them,
Yes,
even when they're talking about shapes in a
yes,
lesson. So I just think,
yes.
oh my God, what fun things are you going to have to
Yes.
communicate about if you will tell me that that's a square? So I feel like that was my like little glimmer of
Mm,
a step into the future and the sessions that we're
mm,
going to get to have some fun with over the next however many months. So
mm.
yeah, no, it was a really nice time. Really nice time. Well, thank you so much for our chat today. It's been
Oh, thank you,
lovely.
Ruth. And we'll see you next
We will
time.
That's right, yeah, for the next episode. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.